Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. Let's move. So today's topic is must like a forest. It is about how the trees of China, fir, camphor, ironwood, and bamboo were used to build an empire that lasted for centuries. So it is written by the Ian and Miller. He's an associate professor in history at St. John's University, Queens, New York. So let's firstly start with the first passage of this essay. In 1676, the King Navy engaged a fleet of Jin Kingdom, a trading empire based in Taiwan that controlled sea lanes from Japan to Southeast Asia. Despite regarding Zheng state as little more than pirates organization, a king captain had to respect the size of its fleet, describing its ships as uncountable. We saw only masts like a forest. Others have written at length and in detail on the political and military aspects of the King's War. To me, the sheer scale of this naval battle requires us to pay attention to other places far from the coast and indeed to other spaces entirely. After all, the trees that ended their lives at the bottom of the Taiwan Strait began their lives in the mountain of southern China and Taiwan. Some had been planted by humans and more decades before they were felled. Others had fallen as seeds below their ancient ancestors and themselves grow into multi-century old giants before suffering to death. The first by X and the second by the cannonball. So this whole passage is describing about the timbers, the condition of the timbers during the King and the Zheng kingdom. So let's see what is the title for this particular paragraph. And according to me, the title for this particular paragraph is Brief Description about King Zheng War or Kingship. So firstly, everyone want to know what is a mast. This mast is nothing but a pole which supports the ship's sails. That's called mast. So let's see what we can take from this particular passage. The first one is from here. I have taken from the whole line. In 1676, the King Navy engaged a fleet of Zheng Kingdom, a trading empire based in Taiwan that controlled sea lanes from Japan to Southeast Asia. Despite regarding the Zheng state as little more than pirates organization, a king captain had to respect the size of the fleet in describing its ships as uncountable. We saw only must like a forest. So what we can take from here is Zheng states have uncountable ships with organization larger than pirate organization. This we can summarize from this passage, particular lines. So let's moving forward from here. We can just the sheer scale of this naval battle requires to pay attention to other places far from the coast and indeed to other species entirely. After all, the trees that ended their lives at the bottom of the Taiwan Strait began their lives in the mountains of southern China and Taiwan. So what we can take from here is the Zheng and King's War encouraged to pay attention to other places far from the coast. And and the loss of forests in Taiwanese traits grow there in the mountains of China and Taiwan, which we can comprehend from here. See, their life, the trees that ended their life. That's it from here. Let's moving forward to the next species. Naval timber was a strategic good in 1676 and for centuries before and after in this era before widespread use of coal and oil, before uranium, lithium and cobalt, government needed wood for nearly everything, firewood and charcoal to fuel smelters, timber for temples and palaces, shops and factories, bridges and dikes. But most of all, they needed wood for ships. In an age of sail, of growing trade and explosive episode of naval warfare, ships were necessary for exchange, defense, and power projection. Exposed to repeated cycle of wetness and dryness, their hulls rotted rapidly, their masts and spears were often damaged in storm or battle, and become and because they were used under dangerous conditions, many ships ended up at the bottom of the sea. Find new trees, large trees with the right structural characteristic to make rot and cannon resistant hulls and replace storm damage, mast and spares was a constant concern. So, the firstly, I will tell you the meaning of some difficult words. So, first one is smelter. What is a smelter? Smelter is a machine for taking a metal out of rock by smelting. Means we are heating it a very heavy temperature so that we can use it in machines. And the another difficult passage is word. Another difficult word is here. Spears. Spear is a strong pole which is used to hold the mast, the sails on a ship. So, what the title for this passage is Use of Woods During the 16th Century. Because it started with the 1670 condition about trees condition about timbers condition about in 1676. So the what we can take from this passage is the firstly from here the government needed a wood for nearly everything. This we can take as it is, and another one is from here. In an age of sales, from this. In an age of sales of growing, a trade and explosive episode of naval warfare, ships were necessary for exchange, defense, and power projections. We can take the whole line as it is. Growing trade and explosive episode of naval warfare, ships were necessary for exchange, defense, and power projections. And moving forward, this. Exposed to repeat cycle of wetness and dryness, their hulls rotted rapidly, their masts and spears were often damaged in storm or battle because they were used under dangerous conditions. Many ships ended up at the bottom of the sea. What we can take from here is in ships, woods are mainly used for masts and spears, which are damaged in storms and battles. Let's moving toward to the another person. Yet, as shipbuilder understood, naval timber was not a single commodity. A proverb recorded in the early 20th century reflected this reality. To build a ship to last for son and grandson, use fir, cypress, catalpa, camphor, and nano. It's written in Chinese as Yao Zhao Jisun Chon San Bai Ji Zhangnan. The timbers were delineated to different use based on their structural characteristics. In 16th century, Nanjing Government ships were built primarily on feet and land. Both spaces used for planking and mast. In Guangdong, some ships were hulled with ironwood, a tropical wood as had as its name suggested. In 18th century, Fujian warship had three hull, cabins, and rail of camphor, a paper mulberry rudder, and miscellaneous of small components built of various other species. But for almost all these components, to do everything wood was China peat, a fast and straight growing conifer that is relatively resistant to both rot and insects, and that was used for everything from hull planking to mast. So, firstly, I will just telling you the difficult word, meaning of difficult word. The first word is here is delineated. It means to mark the border of something. That's it. That's only the difficult word which you are found here. And moving toward the topic. The topic of this lesson is different words used for different parts of ship, as this whole passage suggested. So, let's see what we can take from here. Firstly, from here, we take the line from here that the Nanjing's government ships were built primarily of peat and bamboo, both species used for planking and mast. We can take this whole line as it is, and another one is from here. The Gongzhou ships were hulled with iron. And so another one is from here. The Fujian warship had three hulls, cabins, rail of camphor, and a paper the holes, and the paper, mulberry rudder, and miscellany of small component built of various other species. And the last I have taken from the whole passage, but for almost all these components, the do. Everything wood was China feed, a fast and straight growing conifer that is relatively resistant to both rot and insects. And that was not for the everything from high planting to mix. So we can take from here is China fear is relatively resistant to both rot and insect, used for everything from hull, planking to mast. So we are moving forward to the next passage. Regardless of the three spaces, shipyard officials use fundamentally similar procedure to turn each log into a standard sized component. By the late 1540s, the Ming shipyards in Nanjing established standardized for the planking 1 Chinese pole, zhang, by 1 Chinese foot, chi, by 1 Chinese inch, kan, approximately 3 meter by 30 centimeter by 37 meter. They worked with custom officials to mark these logs before they even reached the shipyards. To make processing easier, each incoming log was branded, sorry, was branded with one character for each foot in circumference. Official compiled tables for how many standard board could be cut from each log for of a given dimension. If log came from trees that had not grown absolutely straight with hollow bend, nod, or twist, all flaws in the eye of the carpenter, they were discounted in proportion how many boards were lost. Some timber merchants were contracted to provide large timber required for the mast and spears as a package, including 1 6 foot log, 3 5 foot log, and 3 4 foot log. So, so the title for this particular passage is How Log Converted into Standard-Sized Components. So, first we have taken from here. The main shipyard in Nanjing established a standard size for the planking 1 Chinese pole, 1 Chinese foot, and 1 Chinese inch, approximately 3 meter into 3 meter into 3 meter. So that's we have taken from the particular passage. Let's moving forward. So, what's the next line or next bullet point we have taken from this passage is just to make a process easier, incoming log was branded with one character for each wood in circumstances. So we have taken from here incoming log was branded with one character for each wood in circumstances. And another one from here. Uh, this line, we can take something from this line. If logs came from the trees that have not given absolutely straight with hollow bend, knot, or twist, all flaws in the eye of the carpenter, they were discounted in proportion of how many woods were lost. So what we can take from it here is woods from not straight trees uh, commented as loss, and the last we can use this line as well. We can take something from here. Some timber merchants even contracted to provide the large timber required for the master repair as a package, including 1 6 foot, 3 foot logs, and 3 4 foot logs. So we can take as it is. The timber merchants were hired to provide 6 foot, 3 5 foot, 3 5 foot, 3 4 foot log packages. Moving forward to the analysis. Standardizations continue over a time. In the 17th century, a new formula calculated timber prices based on the estimate volume of an idealized conic log. These formulas were developed by the Gu Minggu, the eldest daughter of the timber merchant, and only the later adopted by the state, which used them until the 1950s. In 18th century, Fujian, another set of standard divided feed log into 4 grades with colorful names like Big Lucky Wood, Dazimu, and High Seas Wood, Goyangmu. Official compiled dimensions and processing instructions for each part of each grade of warship, providing specification to the sawyers, joiners, coal workers, and painters working the woods and recording workers' day to 2 decimal places of precision. So, what we can take from here, what's the title for this passage? The title for this passage would be a standardization of wood based on its dimension. So, we can take from here. First, we can go to synchronize a chronological way. Like, see, first, in 17th century, a new formula calculated the timber price based on the estimated volume of an idealized coin of law. This formula was developed by the Gu Mingzhu, the eldest daughter of the timber merchant, and the only later adopted by the state, which used them until the 1950s. So what we can take from here is in 17th century, timber price based on the estimated volume of an idealized conic logs. That's we can take from here is. And the another one we can take from here. From this line we can take another bullet point. In 18th century Fujian, another set of standard divided free log into 4 grades with colorful names like Big Lucky Wood and High Sea Woods. So what we can take from here is in 18th century standard for free logs in 4 grades, the Big Lucky Wood and the High Seas Wood. And moving forward, what we can take something from this word passage also. Official compiled dimension and processing instructions for each part of each grade of warship, providing specification to the sawyer, joiner, caulker, painter, working the woods, and recording workers' day to decimal places of precision. So, what we can take from here is compile dimension and processing instructions specification provided to joiner, sawyer, and caulker. That's all for this message. Let's moving towards the another places. Yacht, shipyards, specification while the far more complex reality of obtaining timber, not to speak of the condition in which the trees grow. Most conifer, including the ever-present reed, were grown on plantation. Most broadleaf hardwoods, including camphor, mango, ironwood, were not. Fast-growing species that thrived in clear land and tolerated human intervention in their life cycle worked well as a tree crops. Slower-growing species, or trees that prefer shade and responded poorly to disturbance, could reliably be cut only from natural growth forests. Often, forests of substantial age, yet both type of trees community were in relationship with the human community. They were just different kind of relationship. Let us start by considering the field plantations. So the whole passage is talking about the atmospheric conditions where the trees grow. That would be the that would be the I think at the actual headline of this passage is the atmospheric condition of the trees where trees grows. Where trees or timber grows, we can write it. Both are correct. The first I take from here. The seed were grown on plantation. First bullet point I can take from here is and the moving forward, the another bullet point I can take here. Broadleaf hardwood, including camphor, ironwood, were not a plantation, not grown on plantation. We can take and what we can take, we can take from here is the whole line. We can take bullet point from this line. Slower growing species or trees that prefer shade and responded poorly to disturbance could reliably be cut only from natural growth forests, often forests of substantial age. So we can take from here is slower growing species prefer shades and responded poorly to disturbance. Let's moving forward. And here is the topic of the next coming series of paragraphs. The alliance between a field and the forester was one of the most successful trans-species partnership. The alliance means a treaty, an agreement between a field and the forester. So we are talking about the agreement between the field and foresters. So the first paragraph here is the China field is actually not a close relative of the true field, Abies species. Its Latin name, Cunninghamia lanceolata, derived from an English botanist who spent only a short time in the region. In China, where it is the dominant timber tree south of Yangtze, it is classified using the same term shan, also used for the true field and for several other structurally similar conifers. For these reasons, I prefer to simply call it tree. Like several other small genera of conifer, it diverged from the rest of its family in the early Jurassic and survived the ice age in southern China's minimally glaciated river valleys, while the early human interaction with these species are opaque to history. It is likely that the field were grown on a small estate by the first millennium CE, but it was in second millennium that humans created a new set of relation with the tree. So, the firstly, I will tell you the meaning of one of the difficult words which would be found, many of you found difficult, is opaque. What is opaque meaning? It means a difficult to understand or know about anything. Because that things kept in secret or made complicated. So the title of this particular passage is about it's all about China feed or China feed description. Firstly, we can take from the whole passage, whole line as it is. not a close relative of true peace. The China fear is not a close relative of true peace. And its Latin name, Cunningamia lanceolata. And we can take this as well. That Shan used for true feed in China for similar conifers. And we can take one line from here. Like several other small genera of conifer, it diverged from the rest of its family in the early Jurassic and survived till early Jurassic. We can take from here is that to feed different from its early family in early Jurassic. And another big one we can take from here is survived the ice age in the southern China's minimally glaciated river valley. We can take this whole line as it is. Sorry. We can take the whole line as it is. Survived the ice age in southern China's minimally glaciated river valleys. And we can take something from the whole passage, this whole line as well. While the earliest human interaction with these species are opaque to history, it is likely that the pea were grown on small estates by its first millennium CE. So we can take from here is earlier humans' interaction with the species are opaque to history. That's it from this species, moving towards the next species. The 11th and 12th century in China witnessed a growing pace of urbanization, trade, and some of the largest scale naval warfare to that point in history. This dynamic drove up demand for timber, and southern landowners began planting fields in large numbers. In 1149, a new policy allowed them to claim these trees as their permanent property by surveying the uneven boundaries of plots rather than calculating their area through a simple rectilinear formula. In some areas, registered ice acreage doubled almost overnight, most of the new area representing forest plantation. By the mid 1500s, mountainous area across the four southern provinces featured substantial acreage of taxable forest, most of which were tree plantations. By the late 18th century, fig trees spread into upper reach of the Yangtze River, the smaller watershed draining to the southeast coast and northern portion of the Cold River watershed. The fig trees is now so widespread throughout this region that it is nearly impossible to determine its point of origin. So, what we can take, firstly, there is some important words. The first one is rectilinear. Rectilinear means moving in one or formed from straight line. So the title for this passage is the whole passage is the new about a new policy to claim the fee trees as permanent property in China. The first we can take from this passage. In 1149, a new policy allowed them to claim trees These trees as their permanent property by surveying the uneven boundaries of plot rather than calculating the area through a simple rectilinear formula. We can take from here is 1149 due to urbanization, trade and naval war, new policy introduced, where the boundaries are calculated on the basis of plots. And we can take from here as well. Registered acreage double almost overnight. Most of the new area represent forest plantations. So we can take it as it is. And we can take something from here as well. By the mid 1500, mountainous era across a four southern province featured substantial acreage of taxable forest, most of which were tree plantations. So what we can take here is mid 1500 mountainous area of the four southern province feature acreage of taxable forest. And we can take something from here is by the late 18th century, peat trees spread into the upper reach the Yangtze River, the smaller watershed draining of the southeast coast and the northern portion of the Pearl River watershed. I think we can take as it is this line. And we can take also from here as it is important. You have to keep in the mind the last few lines of the passage is very important because most of the questions came from there. So, what this line is saying, the first tree is now the fee tree is now so widespread throughout this region that it is nearly impossible to determine its point of origin. So we can take from here is widespread growth of fee through trees make it impossible to determine its point of origin. That's it for this passage. Let's moving forward. Another quite longer. Given the rapid speed of plantation across southern China, we might see the alliance between a freed and forester as one of the most successful trans-species partnership of the past millennium. But other feature of the relationship calls its conclusive into question. It turns out that China fields sprout new shoots from the trunk of a cut tree, a rare feature among the conifers. The slips, these slips transplanted across the landscape of this day are clone rather than sexual offspring of their mothers. Because the lifetime of the plantations growth field is often as short as 30 years. They are not just clones, but young clones. Many tree plantations were managed corporately with shareholders buying and selling the rights to future timber harvest to shareholder clone clonal rapid maturing feed were the idea. Fungible investment. But this raised the question, was the multiple province assemblies of feed plantation and an interspecies alliance or a clone army of China's soldiers? And indeed, if field clones were the perfect foot soldier for the southern China's early corporate overlords, what relationship defined the interaction between the people and other creed that ended up doxites? So, the title for this particular passage is about the field. So, what we can take from the passage is the first is from here. Transplanted across the landscape of this day are cloned rather than sexual offspring of their mothers, because the lifetime of the plantation grown seed is often as short as 30 years, and they are not just clone but young clones. So, what we can take from here is firstly from here. We can take some lines from here as well. I think the whole line as it is. The China fields brought new shoots from the trunk of a cut tree, a rare feature among conifers. So we can write it as China fields sprouts new shoots from the trunk of a cut tree, a rare feature among conifers. We can take it as it is. And then moving forward, just another one. So we can take from here is transplant across a landscape are cloned than offspring because of the shorter lifespan of the field plantation. And what we can take from other, we can take from here as well. So this whole passage to shareholders, cloner, rapid maturing fields were the ideal and fungible investment. We can take this whole line as it is. That's it for this passage. Shareholders, cloner, rapid manufacturing field were the ideal fungible investment. Means we can take it as the increase in plantation of the clones as it is ideal and fungible investment.
Let's moving toward the next passage. Let us turn the next to the nan, a broadleaf evergreen native to the Yangtze River.
Let us turn next to Nanmu, a broadleaf evergreen native to the Yangtze River interior tributary. To build, to builders, Nanmu was in many ways a superior version of it. It grew straight and tall relatively quickly and featured a particularly attractive green when cut. Unlike seed, Nanmu does not appear to have been planted on any scale. The logs floated out of the mountains and grew to maturity in mixed forest feature many other species of plants and animals, including humans. But unlike the early feed planter, these people were generally not full-time farmers. Instead, they depended on a mix of small-scale farming, hunting, gathering, and hoarding. Nanu is now widely used as a string tree throughout the region. May have been venerated by many of these Argo, agro-silvopastoralists. They also traded forest products, including enamel timber, with outsider. Medieval Chinese recorders speak of wood guests, Nuke, who came out of the mountain to trade timber for textiles and metal tools. Chinese merchants were to remain in the river valleys and allowed their counterparts to transport the trees out of the mountains. So, the title of this particular passage is about the non-wood timber, because the whole passage is talking about non-wood, its growth, its environment where it's grow, and everything, its features, everything. So we can take from here first a broadleaf evergreen native of Yantes rivers interior tributaries. First, we can take it from here. And another line we can take from this passage is a superior version of, and we can take from here as well. It's straight and tall relatively quickly and feature a particularly attractive green Rampart. The whole passage we can take. And another one from here. Logs floated out of the mountains and grew of maturities mixed forests featuring many other species of plants and animals, including humans. So, this we can also take. And what we can take, we can take from here is this line we can also take. Nano is now widely used as a shrimp treat for other reason, and many have been penetrated by the many of these agro silver pastoralists. You can take the whole line as it is. And another one we can take from here. The medieval Chinese record speak of wood guests who came out of the mountain to create timber for textiles and metal goods. We can take the whole line as it is. Let's move into forward to the another pieces. The story of Nanyu took a sharp turn in the late 14th century, when the armies of the Ming dynasty pursued a Mongol prince into upper reach of the Yangtze River watershed. This area had been integrated into the Mongol Empire in 13th century, but laterly ruled by native officials, Sugzuan. As Ming armies penetrate the region to remove this rival, they likewise granted the title of non-Han rulers, recognizing a degree of indigenous sovereignty as long as this native official in turn recognized the authority of Beijing. Part of this relationship entailed presenting timber to the court, at first on a relatively small scale, then in 1406, the third Ming emperor, Zuji, greatly scaled up the extraction of tribute. A junior son of the dynasty founder, Zuji, had deposed his nephew to seize the throne, and he had a few compulsions about projecting the power into the borderland. He sent dozens of officials and thousands of forced labor to cut and ship hundreds of thousands of Nanu trunks to Beijing. There, he built palaces on an unprecedented scale and entombing the majesty of an ancient trees in lacquer and erecting them to support the enormous roof of Forbidden City. So there are so many difficult words from this passage. So let's find the difficult words here. The first one is entailed. Not the first, but just catch my eyes first. What is the meaning of entail? Entail means to make something necessary. And another one is entombing. Entomb. The entomb means bury someone or something. Or we cannot, there is any few. Yeah, there is integrated. Integrated means with two or more things combined in order to become more effectively. There another one is compulsion. Compulsion. Compulsion means a slight guilty feeling about something you have done or might do. That's it. And the title for this passage is Role of Nanmu in 14th Century Dynasty. So, what we can take from here is we can take some lines, something from this whole line. The story of Nanmu took a sharp turn in the late 14th century when the armies of Ming Dynasty pursued a Mongol prince into the upper reach of the Yangtze River watershed. So what we can take from here is Ming armies penetrate the Yangtze region to remove Ming, just this. So we can take from here nothing. We can take from above. We can take from here is that make armies penetrate the region to remove this rival. They likewise granted the title of non-Han ruler, recognizing a degree of indigenous sovereignty as long as its native officials in turn recognize the authority of Beijing. So what we can take from here is an a Ming armies penetrate the Yangtze region to remove a Mongol prince. That's we can take. Another we can take from here. The part of this relationship entail of presenting timber to the court at first on a relatively small scale. So what we can take from here, Nong Han's and the Ming army's relationship entail presenting the timber to the Beijing court on a small scale. That's we can take. And another one is from here. In 1406, the third Ming Emperor Zudi greatly scaled up the extraction of tribute. So we can just take it the 1406. Zudi greatly scaled up the extraction. That's it. And we can take something from here as well. A junior son of the dynasty founder Zudi had deposed his nephew to seize the throne and had few convictions about projecting power into the borderland. I think so. We can't take much anything from here. So we can take from here as well. Hmm. He sent dozens of officials and thousands of forced labor to cut and ship hundreds of thousands of non-trunk to Byzantium. So we can take it as it is that junior son of Zuji ordered a cut and ship hundred or thousand of the trunks to Byzantium. And we can take this whole as it is. Too busy, and we can add something or more on it. Too busy to build the palaces and for just like entombing the majesty of the ancient trees is lacquer and the erecting to support the enormous roof of Forbidden City. So, the meaning of word here is there is another difficult word is lacquer. The meaning of lacquer is a shiny and hard substance that painted on wood or metal to protect its surface. So what we can take from this line is embodying the majesty of ancient trees in lacquer and erecting them to support the enormous roof of forbidden cities. We can take as it is. Moving forward, another series of the passages. Let's see what this whole series is talking about. Just a few last three could purchase a promotion. Okay, so it is about something promotion and its relation with trees. So let's read the first passage of the series. This scale of logging could not be maintained, and after Judy died, the expedition were cancelled. But when palaces burned down in the 16th century, logging was reopened. Logging supervisors looked everywhere for Nanmo, the estate of imperial prince, the graveyards of prominent families, Mountains at less cultural and geographical distance from Beijing. They complain constantly of the condition at its frontier, malaria, attacks by indigenous groups, starvation, and extreme difficulty of extracting enormous tree from their remote mountain homes. But more than anything, they relied on timber to build. Indigenous rulers could submit timber valued at 3,000 silver tiles for the highest ranking pacifications commissioners. In exchange for promotion and the elaborate regalia, including the four-clawed dragon monk that represented the highest rank given to the people outside imperial family. This was in essence a tree for title scheme. So, the title for this passage is Logging Effect Before or After Judy's Dynasty. So, we can take something from here as well. The scale of logging could not be maintained, and after Judy died, the expeditions were cancelled. But when the palaces burned down in 16th centuries, logging was rebuilt. So what we can take from here is logging could not be maintained during Judy's dynasty, during the end of Judy's dynasty, but after Judy's died, the expedition were cancelled. So moment forward. And we can also take the scenario where it shows in 16th century, the logging was reopened. And what happened after? Let's see. So we can take from here is logging supervisor. Look everywhere for Namu, the estate of imperial prince, the graveyard of prominent families, mountain at less cultural and geographic distance from Beijing. So we can take from here is the search for the Nanmun from estate of imperial prince, the graveyard, less cultural mountains, geographical distance from Beijing. We can write it down. And this also we can take from here. Malaria attacks by indigenous groups, starvations, and extreme difficulty of extracting enormous trees from their remote mountains. So, we can add some more like that. Just those mountains, but more than anything, they relied on timber tribute. So we can take from here is malaria attacks by the indigenous groups, starvation, and extreme difficulty of extracting enormous trees from the timber tree. You can take something from this whole line, the whole passage as well. Indigenous rulers could submit timber valued at 3,000 silver tiles for the highest ranking classification commissioners in exchange for the promotion and the elaborate regalia, including the four crowns dragon that represent the highest rank given to the people outside the imperial family. This was, in essence, a tree for the title schemes. So it is talking about the schemes. So there is a scheme which called a tree for the titles, and in exchange for the promotion and elaborate graveyard, the indigenous rulers submitted timber values and 3,000 silver tiles to Pacification Commissioner. The Pacification Commissioners need to first give a tiles, which cost a 3,000 silver tiles, and along with that, they also awarded with or presented with the three for titles. And let's moving toward the another basis, the next basis. Timber tribute probably represent the top end of the nano marketplace, a market that also supplied the timber for shipbuilding. Based on modern data of nano growth rate, trees of 6 foot circumference, the largest grade used as a shipyard would have been about a century old and worth about two silver tiles. But explorating to large size, a 12-foot circumference log from a 200-year-old tree might be valued at 70 tiles or more. Just a few large trees could purchase a promotion, while nano of less size could be sold to the merchant who supplied the shipyards. So there is one difficult word in this passage is it's about extrapolating. So it's extrapolate comes from the word extrapolate, and the meaning of extrapolate here is to guess or think about what might happen using information that is already known. Okay, so the title for this particular passage is the value of Nanu according to their size and the age. So we can take this as it is. The trees of 6 foot circumference, the largest grade used as a shipyard, would have been about a century old. And century old and worth about two silver tiles. The tree of 6 foot circumference is century old with worth of two silver tiles. And here, to the larger size, a 12-foot circumference log from 200-year-old might be valued at 70 tile or more. Means 12-foot circumference, 200-year-old, valued 70 plus tiles. Okay. And another one is here. The few larger tree could purchase a promotion. We can take as it is. The nano or lesser size sold a merchant who supplied the shipyards. Okay, तो we can a less size nano sold to the merchants. So moving forward to the next basis. While the trees for the title offer the court a way to the lessen the expense of palace building, it also initiates an unsustainable competition among the native potentates. Several times, the grinning of Mang robs to one soldier inspire his or her rival. There were several female rulers in the region to spate of the violent competitions to find and log the best remaining man. The most extreme case came in 1590s when young Yinglong, a ruler of the Bozu Pacification Commission, raised an army said to number 140,000 soldiers. Ultimately, Yang's army was defeated by an even larger force. He immolated himself rather than face capture, and his domain was integrated under the direct Ming control. While there were multiple overlapping factors leading to his uprising, including a conflict over sending troops to fight Hideyoshi in Korea, the timber tribute was clearly significant. Long after Yang Inglong's death, the descendant of his former subject venerated him for protecting them from bidding excessive demand. So there are some difficult words here as well. The first one is potentate. It means a ruler who has a lot of power, especially one whose power is not limited and See, another difficult word is spate. Spate. It means a large number of events than unusual. And another difficult word is immolate. It means to kill yourself or someone else or to destroy something, usually by burning or in a formal ceremony. And the another difficult word and the last one is venerate. It means to honor or respect a person or thing. So the title for this particular passage is Historical Story Behind the Trees for Title. And first we can take from here. Offer to quote a listen to expense of palace building. Trees. Trees for title is offered to the court to listen the expense of palace building. And we can take this line as it is, initiated an unsustainable competition among the native potentates. And we can take from this line as well the granting of the mangroves to one ruler, inspiring his or her rivals to stage a violent competition to find the best remaining none. We can take as we can take sorry, we can take something from here as well. Long after young Eugene's death, the descendant of his former subject penetrated him to protecting them from easy excessive demand. So we can, what we can comprehend from this line is timber tribute given to the young Yanging Long for his courage. That's it for that passage. Let's moving towards the next passage. The bourgeois uprising represents the beginning of the violent period in southwestern China, lasting nearly a century. But as soon as the Qing dynasty established control in 1681, they ordered officials back into the mountain to cut timber. These officials soon reported that the largest trees were gone or unreachable from the river. As the historian Meng Zhang has shown, timber tribute was then transformed into a system of licenses granting merchants the first choice of timber on the market, but unlike in the Mint, the only spaces specifically noted in the tributary regulation was fee. Supplying timber tribute to the court was not less as money losing proportion, so the comprador were allowed to underwrite the official business by buying and selling their own log of the science. So the title of this whole passage is Trade of Timber in the late 16th century. As it suggested, control in 1681. So the first we can take from here, the Qing dynasty. The Qing dynasty established control in 1681. They ordered officials back into the mountain to cut timber. We can write it as 1681 Qing dynasty ordered officials back into the mountains to cut the timber. And we can take also this. The largest trees were gone. We can take something from this passage as well. As the historian Meng Zheng has shown, a timber tribute was then transformed into a system of licenses, granting merchants the first choice of timber on the market, but unlike in the Ming, The only species specifically noted in the tributary regulation was speed. So we can write as the Ming San timber tribute was transformed into a system of license granting merchants the first choice of timber on the market. That's it for this thesis. Let's move in forward the another one. Meanwhile, the indigenous settlement of southwestern China, including a people now identified as Miao, E, and member of several other ethnic groups, were increasingly beset by the settlers from the lowland of eastern China. By 1700, the largest native offices has had largely been eliminated in the following decade. The king targeted the Miao frontier, one of the last largest era reciting direct control from Beijing. By the late 18th century, Miao villagers in eastern Guizhou began to plant feed tree to make up a growing share of the timber export. To prevent inter inter-ethnic violence, a Beijing granted the several Miao towns a joint monopoly on timber sale out of the region, a position they defeated well into the 19th century. Further west, in the land of the Nuasu people, uprising likewise lead Beijing to establish ethno-ecological frontier between a Chinese settler in the lowland and non-Han group in the upland. But increasingly, the fringe of Sichuan, Yunnan, and Guizhou began to look more like eastern China. The dense agriculture in river valley and field-based silviculture extending to the lower slopes of mountain, the distinct Argo-silvo life that are protected, benefited, and long landmarks from old-growth forests were on decline. So, the best title of this particular passage is Plantation of Feed for Growing Export. So, first we can take from here. The late 18th century, Miao villages in eastern Guizhou began to plant peat tree to make up a growing share of the timber exports. We can take it as it is. And another one from here. Prevent inter-ethnic violence. Beijing granted the several Miao towns a joint monopoly on timber sale out of the region, a position they defended well into the 19th century. So we can take it prevent ethnic violence. Beijing granted several Miao towns a joint monopoly on timber sales out of the region. And another we can take from here. Feed-based Field-based silviculture extended to the lower slopes of mountains. You can take as it is. So another one is from the Venetrates and long Nanu from old growth forests were on decline. You take it as it is. So moving forward to the next species. Now let us turn to a tree native to a region south of Nanu Herdsland, Ironwood, Nisua feria, Chelimu. In Guangdong and Guangxi, ships built almost entirely of ironwood were renowned for their durability. Outside this region, ironwood was rare enough that it was mostly used for ships' rudders. By the mid 1500s, a tariff station was established on the West River to tax ironwood as it came out of the Guangxi. Like Fir and Nan, ironwood was graded in standard size ranging from 1 to 2 poles long and 1 to 6 feet in circumstances. Like Yunnan and Guzhou, much of the 16th century, Zongzi was controlled by indigenous potentates, known to visit as native officials. So it is possible that the ironwood trade was comparable with the Nanmu timber tribute, although the state of research is currently hazy. So the meaning of hazy is hazy era weather, which is not clear, uncleared weather, we can say that. The best title for this particular paragraph is Description about Trade of Ironwood. So, firstly, we can take from this. We can take a bullet from this particular lines. In Guangdong and the Guangxi, ships built almost entirely of the iron wood denotes for their durability outside this region. Iron wood was really enough that it was mostly used for ship structures. We can take it as a Gonggung and Gongzir, ships built almost entirely in ironwood because of its durability. And for the ship products. And another one we can take from here. By the mid-1500s, a tariff station was established on the West River to tax ironwood as it came out through Guernsey. We can take as it is this line. And another one is here. Like feed and Nanmu, ironwood was graded as standard sizes ranging from 1 to 2 poles long and 1 to 6 feet in circumstances. That's it for this pieces. Let's moving forward to the another pieces. The ironwood tree population suffered in the face of rampant logging. Its decline was even more precipitous than that of the Nile. In the 1530s, an ironwood plank ship cost 500 silver tiles. By the 1570s, the price has doubled. Even the cost of these ships remained roughly constant. It grew so scarce that in 1629 officials were dispatched to Vietnam to buy just 2 poles of ironwood. In 1663, another group of buyers found it only on a Dutch ship coming from Southeast Asia. As shipyards, officials reported greater difficulties obtaining ironwood at market. Gazetteers show a clear decline in the availability of these trees in the interior. In the early 1600s, Yangzhou country in Guangdong had lots of ironwood, but by the turn of the 18th century, it reported a little ironwood, but now none that fit an arm span. If you want larger materials, they can only be found in Guangzhou. Other countries that previously exported ironwood simply reported that there is no longer any ironwood, but ironwood is now rare. By the late 1750s, Sir Obsbeck, a Swedish botanist and disciple of the Carl Linnaeus, reported that anchor was still made of ironwoods, but the Cantonese ships were now planked with steel. By 20th century, even the rudders were made from the lychee, the camphor. As of 2007, ironwood was so rare that the compiler of the Flora of China considered it ultimately to be the native of reason. So, the title of this whole passage is Disappearance of Ironwood. And there is one word which you might find difficult, precipitous. Precipitous, which means a very steep of falling. So, what we can take from this text is firstly, in 1950s, an ironwood plank ship cost 500 silver tiles, and in 1970, the price is double. In 1961, Official will dispatches to Vietnam to buy just two poles of ironwood. In 1963, a group of buyers sent to the Southeast Asia, and another one from here. In the early 1600s, Yangtze country, Zongdong has lots of ironwood, which are out of the 18th century reported as little ironwood, but none that feel like an arms span. We can write it as 1600 Yangtze known for the lots of ironwood, but in 18th century the title would a little ironwood. It's reported as the title of little ironwood. And the larger material can only found in Gongsi. This we can take another one from here. So what we can take from here is an anchor was still made of ironwood, but the ships were flanked with steel. And by 20th century, rather, it was started made from the light tree and the camphor. We can take and in 2007 ironwood the real compiler. We can we can take it as in 2007 ironwood were rare. Moving forward to the next species. These three timber from the Chinese interior field man-made ironwood were all used to build ships on the coast, including those that fought in the Qingzhang War on 17th century. Yet these wars themselves opened another front in the assault of the forest of Eastern Asia. In 1683, the Qing Navy defeated the Zheng fleet's mast like a forest and seized control of the Taiwan and, more properly, southwestern Taiwan. The rest of the island were inhabited by the variety of indigenous groups who relied primarily on hunting and gathering. As the Qing solidified control of the island in 18th and 19th century, Taiwan came to feature its own system for supplying timber to the shipyard. Two generations after the Qing conquest, in 1722, the government established a line of 514 stones to divide the western plains inhabited by the Han Chinese farmer from the eastern mountain that were home of indigenous Taiwanese hunter. Yet, this 3 years later, the king built official shipyards in southwestern Thailand, which required the timber from the eastern interior, an area where the logging was explicitly forbidden to Han settlers. The court solution was to establish another office, the military works foreman, Zhongzhong, Jiangsu, with exclusively logging rights in indigenous territory. As in Southwest, the system featured both a border between ethnic group and an institution that could cross the border to supply timber to the shipyards. The title for this species is Timber Trade for the Shipyard during the Qing Dynasty. So what we can take? We can take something from here. What we can take from here is 18th to 19th century, Taiwan came to feature its own system for supplying timber to the shipyards. Another we can take from here. And this is official shippers in southwestern Taiwan, which required timber from eastern interior area where the logging was explicitly forbidden to Han settlers. To the court solution was established another official, the military works foreman. So what we can take from here, in the southwestern Taiwan, a military work foreman with exclusively logging rights in indigenous territory. Let's moving towards the another series of the places. Let's see what this series talking about. The gift of rising salt, wine, pigs, and guns and gunpowders were exchanged for permission to law. Okay, so let's see what it contains. Let's read the species. While a variety of trees grew in Taiwan's forest, its conifers were too deep in the mountain to be accessible to shipyard officials. In fact, Taiwan shipyards imported the peat and pine used for the hulls and masts from the mainland. Instead, the foreman focused on the most accessible, desirable timber camphor, which grew in the hills just beyond the Han indigenous frontier and was used to build cabins and the other upper structures of the ship. But like the timber tribute in the southwest, supplying camphor timber to the shipyards was a money-losing proposition. To enable the office of works foremen to pay for itself, the foremen were given a monopoly not only on timber but on other forest products, including the highly profitable business of refining camphor rods into terpene crystals used for the medicine and ritual purpose. All the camphor timber produced is purchased by the material office. Noted one essay from the Danshui Gazette. Each furnace household that boiled camphor in the mountain in the interior is also controlled by the material office. If logging in 16th century, Shinchua and Ziozhua operate under the tree for title system. Taiwan's 18th-19th century camphor monopoly was a timber for Japanese arrangement. The topic for this particular passage is trade and use of camphor. So first we take from here. Used to build a cabin and upper structure of the ships. And camphor timber to the shipyard was money losing proportions. Can take. All the camphor timber produced is purchased by the material officers. Taiwan's 18th-19th century camphor monopoly was timber for the Japanese arrangement. So all we can take from this particular thesis. Let's moving toward the next thesis. Yet, the military work for men represent only the green side of the trade, in addition to paying tax to the official material office. Furnace households relied on intermediaries, often indigenous people, acculturated, acculturated to Chinese, where handmen married the indigenous women or their mixed race offspring. These go between negotiated mounting fee with the less accumulated indigenous people of the interior, including gifts of rice, salts, wines, pigs, guns, and gunpowders, in exchange for permission to log and make camphor crystals. As the historian Faizan Zakaria has written, share the feasting made king of potential enemies. From one perspective, the Han indigenous war established in the early 18th century enabled both sides to negotiate to their own advantage. From another, the limited flow of goods allowed both the king state and indigenous Taiwanese to frame the exchange in terms that they understood, the former as official monopoly, later as kingship seals with gift exchange. So the title of this particular passage is Negotiated Trade of Camphor Log Between the Two Borders. So what I can take from here is this whole paragraph that the handman married indigenous women or their mixed race offspring. These go between negotiated mountain fee with the less accurate indigenous people of the interior, including a gift rice, salt, wine, pigs, guns, and gunpowder in exchange for the permission to log and make camp for histories. That's it for this passage we can take. There is one line. From the perspective of the shipyards, Fernando Campo and Ironwood was strategically good. Okay. Moving toward the last passage of this series. But the wood that ended up shone into the boards and made into hulls did not begin its life as commodity timber. At least not all of it did. To be sure, most peat trees were cut at slips and planted in uniform plots alongside their clonal sister. The express purpose to end their life shone into boards and nailed to a hut. But Nanu, Camphor, and Ironwood, and dozens of other tree species did not respond as happily to the pressure of forest clearance and plantation. Most of these trees began their lives in ancient woodland below their parents' trees, surrounded by the mixed canopies of other species. Some were penetrated by the human a community living in and around their forest. Others were largely ignored until they were decades, or even hundreds of years old. But then, unforeseen and unprecedented demand drove people to search out the oldest, large of these trees, the very individual that would previously have been object of worship and fell from them to make ships, hulls, and imperial temples. So the title of this particular passage is What Happens to These Timbers After Overlocking? So we are talking about it is given about various of the trees. So the first tree you can see here is about a pea. The fee trees were cut at slips and planted in uniform plots alongside their clonal sister. Their express purpose to end their lives shone into the boots and nailed to the heart. As we can take from this. And moving forwards, it's given about Nanu, camphor, and ironwood, and dozens of other trees species did not respond as happily to pressure for the forest clearance and plantations. And most of this began and most of us begin their lives in the ancient woodland below their parents' trees, surrounded by the mixed canopies of odor. We can take from here is a Nanu, Camphor, Ironwood beg, begin their life in ancient woodland below their parents' trees, surrounded by the mixed canopies. That's all for this passage. That's moving forward. There is another series. It's talking about indigenous forests were targeted as a resource for the radical political campaigns. Okay. So here comes its first thesis. Perhaps because of this escalated demand, the 15th through 18th century saw the institutionalizations of an old practice, drawing a line between a farm and forest and between the domain of the Chinese state and those of the non-Chinese people. These were not impermeable borders. In every place where the Byzantines marked a frontier limiting Han's colonizations, it also created an institution with an exclusive right to cross that frontier. The timber tribute, the military works foreman, while less visible in the historical record, the parties on the other side of the border, whether young Inglon in Buzua or indigenous villages in Taiwan, created their own system for managing trans-border exchange. For hundreds of years, these semi-permeable boundaries protected the livelihood of the people who depend on the forests for the hunting, gathering, and shifting agriculture. They also protected the other species that inhabited these forests, including the trees such as the Nanmu, camphor, and ironwood. So the meaning of the word, the most commonly used word here in this particular paragraph is impermeable, which means not allowing a liquid or gas to go through. So the title for this passage is The Role of Permeable Water in Protecting the Farms and Agriculture. So first we can take from here the timber tribute. The timber tribute, the military work moments, while less visible in historical record, the parties of other side of the border with the Yangnam in Bozua and indigenous peoples in the Taiwan. Villages in Taiwan created their own system for managing trans-border exchange. So what we can take from here is the timber tribute, the military work moments are right to cross frontier. That's it for this line. And let's moving forward what we can take from this last passage. Semi-permeable boundaries protected the livelihood of the people who depended on the forest for the hunting, gathering, and shifting agriculture. They also protected the other species that inhabited this forest, including a tree such as nanmo, camphor, and ironwood. We can take from here as semi-permeable boundaries protected the livelihood of the people who depended on the forest, not just people, but the inhabitants. Let's moving forward. See the next passage. In 19th century, even the semi-permeable boundaries that provided some provisional level of protection for non-Han communities and wild growth forests began to fall, facing unprecedented pressure from the Han settlers. Miao community at the heart of the Nanmu growing region revolted against the Beijing twice in 1795 and 1806, and in 1854-73. Ethnic tension in Zongzi and the Zongdong, the former Ironwood Portland, gave birth to the Taiping movement, a millenarian rebellion torn civil war that swept across much of the southern China in 1815. In response to colonial pressure from Britain and Japan, the king opened the mountain of Taiwan to Han settlers in the 1870s and 80s, only transferred the island to Japanese control in 1895 as a spoil of the First Sino-Japanese War. So, what we can the headline of this particular thesis is why the protection from the semi-permeable communities fall. So, what we can take from here first, this line: the unprecedented pressure from the Han settlers. Another one is from here: ethnic tension in Zongzi and Zongtong. That's it for this passage. Just moving forward the next one. Over time, the Japanese Empire and later the Republic of China or Taiwan worked to survey, classify, and control both indigenous forests and indigenous people on the island. After a period of de facto independence following the fall of the king in 1912, the Southwest faced another, sometimes violent, recolonization under the People's Republic of China. Its people surveyed and classified into the 56 official ethnic groups. Its forests targeted as resource for radical political campaign. It is only the past few decades that both PRC and the ROC have turned to new reform of conversation. So the title for this particular thesis is Japanese Empire and the Republic of China, Taiwan use forest as political campaign. First, we can take from here. The control both indigenous forests and indigenous people on island. Another one from here. 56 official ethnic group. Its forest targeted as resource for radical political campaign. To this one. That's it for that paragraph. Let's move into the last passage of this whole Aeon. In the meantime, the importance of naval timber declined as iron warship displaced Britain won in the national navies and private Chinese shipbuilding moved to Southeast Asia, where both goods and labor were less expensive. States and corporations still valued forests, but largely for different purposes as plywood and laminates, paper pulps, chemical precursors, or to grow industry crops such as the rubber. Even structured timber is now valued more by its volume than the special characteristic of different tree species. The fate of the tree reflected both the old and new realities. Ironwood is now all but extirpated from China, except where we introduced from Southeast Asia. Camphor grow patchily throughout the extensive territory, often as a street tree or in temple complexes, but is far less prevalent in the broader landscape. Nanmu's range is now a fraction of the territory formerly controlled by native office in the middle and upper Yangtze River drainage act and feed the colonial foot soldier of merchants and empires everywhere. So the title for this thesis is The Change in the Trade and Demand and Use of Timbers. The first we can take from here, the importance of naval timber decline. And another one is from here. Structure is now valued more by the volume than the spatial characteristic of different trees. Ironwood is now all but extirpated from China. Camphors partially Camphors grow patchily throughout the extensive territory, often as a street tree or temple complex, but is far less prevalent in the border landscape. We can take from here. And another one about the Nanmu. Nanmu's range is now fraction of the territory controlled by native offices in the middle and upper Yangtze River drainage. The last one is about the feed. The feed, the colonial food soldiers of merchants and empires everywhere. That's it for all the spaces. Thank you very much. Be with me till this time. Bye bye. See you with next Eunice.